Is that one working? Can I use that one?
Yeah, as soon as I switch up.
Okay.
Bismillah.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, we've arrived at the 20th day of Ramadan. And tonight is an odd night, so tonight would be considered the 21st night of Ramadan. Tonight will be considered the 21st of Ramadan, 21st night of Ramadan, which means that it is a possibility that Laylatul Qadr could be tonight. There's a possibility that Laylatul Qadr could be tonight. So I'm hoping that some of us got some rest and we are able to stand up tonight, or at least a portion of the night, and engage in some form of worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Laylatul Qadri khayrun min alfi shahr, that the night of Qadr, the night of power, is better than 1,000 months. All right? For people who started on Thursday, for people who went the whole month of Sha'ban, 30 days, for them, then for those who are following the international sighting, then Ramadan, this would be considered the 20th day, the 21st night of Ramadan. All right. So, alhamdulillah, we've arrived at dua number 19. Dua number 19, we're always one dua behind, simply because we missed a day, we missed a dua, and that means that if, in fact, the last night of Ramadan, meaning the last night that we do not pray the Taraweeh prayer, and that means that the next day is going to be the Eid, we will not have a class on that night. So then that means that we will have covered 29 dua. All right, so we move on to dua number 19, and this is the dua of Prophet Shuaib. Dua of Prophet Shuaib. Those of you on Periscope, unfortunately, I had to turn off the notifications and the comment section because it's just ridiculous. And we're going into the last 10 nights of Ramadan, and I really don't have, the tolerance, the energy to deal with, what the shenanigans that go on Periscope. But if you would like to comment, engage in conversation, I am streaming it live on Facebook Live. So you can go to Facebook Live. And one thing I will say about Facebook Live is you guys are very respectful. I've only had to block maybe one or two people from the whole time that I've been using Facebook Live. I've only had to block about maybe one or two people the entire time. And that's like within the past year. I've only been using Facebook Live for about a year now, maybe less than that. And I've only had to block, maybe one or two people in a whole entire year. Every single time I open up my Periscope, I have to block at least 4 or 5 people every single time I turn on my Periscope, man. Almost every time. That's unfortunate, but, it is what it is. Both Muslim and non-Muslim, unfortunately. Both Muslim and non-Muslim, unfortunately. All right, so we move on to the dua of Prophet Shuaib. We mentioned, let me give you some backstory on dua. We mentioned it at the beginning of our series, and I don't know if anyone caught it, but I'm going to reiterate it now. We mentioned at the beginning of the series that dua is two types. There are two types of dua. All right, and both types you can find in the Quran amongst the dua of the prophets and messengers. There's the first type, which is called dua al-mas'ala. Dua al-mas'ala, or talab. Ibn Qayyim, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his book, Bada'i al-Fawaid, he mentioned that dua is of two types. And both types of dua you can find in the Quran amongst the dua of the prophets and messengers. The first type of dua is what is known as dua al-mas'ala, or dua al-talab. It is to request something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to call on Him, requesting something from Him, right? بأن طلب ما ينفع الداعي وطلب كشف ما يضره أو ينفعه. The scholars say dua and mas'ala, it means to request from Allah, the da'i, the caller, the one that is supplicating to Allah. He's calling on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something that is beneficial for him, or calling on Allah to remove something that is detrimental to him. That is what is known as what? Dua al-mas'ala. Alright? That's great, Beth. I'm glad to hear that you've taken your shahada on May 13th. SubhanAllah, you've only been Muslim such a very short period of time, and I'm great that I'm grateful to Allah that He allowed us to cross paths at such an early stage of your conversion, and that you're having a healthy and a good experience with the religion thus far. And I'm extremely grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have played a part in that. And I pray that your experiences with the religion continue to get better and better with each and every passing day, inshallah. So the first type of dua is known as dua al-mas'ala, the dua of asking Allah for something or requesting something from Allah, right? And that is either to ask Allah for something that is going to be of benefit to you, whether in your personal life, or in your religious or spiritual life. All right, it's to request from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what you need from Him, whether it's related to your secular life, your worldly life, or your religious life, or to ask Allah to remove something harmful from you. All right, to remove something. This is what is called what? Dua al-mas'ala. All right, now there's the second type of dua that many may not have paid attention to. The second type of dua, which is known as dua al-thana or dua al-ibadah. And this is the dua of worship or the dua of praise. You're not necessarily asking Allah for something. You are actually just praising Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, or acknowledging your weakness in front of Him without actually asking Him for something, right? As we see in the dua of Prophet Yaqub. Yaqub said, he didn't ask Allah for anything. He said, إِنَّمَا أَشْكُو بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. I only complain of my grief and my sorrow to Allah, right? He didn't ask Allah for anything, right? He wasn't requesting anything. He was just simply making a statement. He was praising Allah and he was acknowledging his weakness in front of Allah. And this is a form of dua. Many of the prophets and messengers, many of the du'as that we have covered before, and I would like for you at some point, now that you know the two different types of dua, I want you to go back through your list. If you have been taking notes, go back through your list of dua and find out, which prophet made which type of dua, because we've covered both. Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam, he didn't actually ask Allah for anything. He just simply said that I only complain of my grief and my sorrow to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's all he said. But that is considered a dua. Why? Because even though he didn't ask for anything, he's still praising Allah, still acknowledging his weakness in front of Allah, in hopes that Allah would see his condition, see his situation, and respond to him accordingly. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best about what you need better than what you do. And sometimes it's sufficient for you as a human being to just, praise Allah and to just acknowledge your weakness in front of Allah without necessarily asking for anything, in hopes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give you what you need. All right? When you look at the dua of Prophet Yunus in the belly of the well, right? He didn't ask Allah for anything. He said, La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. Right? He said, La ilaha illa anta, nothing worthy of worship except you. Subhanaka, glory be to you. Inni kuntu min al-zalimin. I was amongst the wrongdoers. He never asked Allah for anything. He didn't ask for anything. He just acknowledged that he was that he was wrong in what he did by leaving, his people. He didn't ask for anything, but Allah says right after that, in the very next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ وَنَجَّيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْغَمِّ, that we responded to him and we removed him from the grief that he was experiencing. We removed him from the situation that he was in. So even though Prophet Yunus alayhi salam, much like Prophet Yaqub, much like Prophet Shuaib that we're going to cover today, they didn't actually ask for anything. All right, dua doesn't always have to be you asking Allah for something. You could simply say to Allah, oh Allah, I am weak. I cannot do this. I cannot do this. Oh Allah, you see my situation. You're not asking for anything. You're just pleading with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to see your situation and to respond to you and your needs accordingly. Right? You're not asking for anything. All right, and this is because both of these type of supplications, they entail hope and desire for something that Allah has, or the hope and desire to be heard and to be seen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as well as a fear of not being heard or a fear of not being responded to. And whether the latter or the former, this is what dua entails. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the prophets and messengers in the Quran, He said, إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ وَيَدْعُونَنَا رَغَبًا وَرَهَبًا وَكَانُوا لَنَا خَاشِعِينَ. Allah says, indeed they, meaning the prophets and messengers, إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا, indeed the prophets and messengers, كَانُوا يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ, they used to hasten to do good deeds. وَيَدْعُونَنَا رَغَبًا وَرَهَبًا, and they used to call on us between fear and hope. Call on us between fear and hope. وَكَانُوا لَنَا خَاشِئِينَ, while they were fearful and extremely conscious of us. All right, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describing the prophets and messengers when they called on Him out of fear and hope. So sometimes you're calling on Allah, asking Him for something, and sometimes you're calling on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just to praise Him, just to acknowledge your weakness in front of Him without actually asking Him for anything. All right? So in today's dua, we're going to look at a prophet that we don't usually hear about much. This particular prophet's name was mentioned, or situation was mentioned in the Quran 11 times. Prophet Shuaib alayhi salam was one of the Arab prophets, or came from Arab lineage, one of the 4 prophets who were Arabs whose names were mentioned in the Quran. Can anyone think of the other 3? There were only 3. All of the other prophets and messengers, there's 25 prophets mentioned in the Quran, right? 25 prophets mentioned in the Quran. All right? Out of those 25, only 4 were Arabs. The rest of them were from Bani Israel, all right? With the exception of course, Prophet Adam alayhi salam and Prophet Noah alayhi salam, because Ibrahim came a little bit after them. Can anyone name the other 3 Arab prophets? One was Shuaib, and the other 3 were who? Of course, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muhammad is mentioned in the Quran. Anyone else know the other 2? Anyone else know the other 2 Arab prophets mentioned in the Quran? One of them starts with an S. Salih. Ibrahim was not an Arab, but Salih was, yes. No, Isa was not an Arab. Isa was from Bani Israel. Isa was Jewish. Anyone else? So it's Prophet Shuaib, Prophet Salih, Prophet Muhammad, and there's one more. Who can name that other one? Prophet Hud, alayhi salam. Very good, mashallah. Very good, mashallah. So those are 4 prophets that were from the tribes of the Arabs, all right, that are mentioned in the Quran. And believe it or not, these same 4 prophets are not actually mentioned in the Bible. These same 4 prophets are not actually mentioned in the Bible either. Hud is not mentioned in the Bible. Salih is not mentioned in the Bible. Shuaib is not mentioned in the Bible. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not mentioned in the Bible. Yeah. And that was because many of the Israelites, they did not acknowledge Prophet Ismail as a legitimate son of Ibrahim. So therefore, any prophet that came from Ismail's lineage, they don't acknowledge, right? So Prophet Shuaib, yeah, that is crazy. Prophet Shuaib, alayhi salam, he was sent to the people of what's known as Median. Al-Median, as Allah mentions in the Quran, وَإِلَى مَدْيَنَ أَخَاهُمْ شُعَيْبًا قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُمْ مِنْ إِلَهٍ غَيْرُهُ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and to the people of Median, we sent their brother, أَخَاهُمْ شُعَيْبًا. We sent to them their brother Shuaib, and Shuaib began his message with, Ya qawmi, O my people. Listen to the wording, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that to Median we sent them their brother, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always sent the prophet from the people to which he was going to preach to. All right, to know their culture, know their language, know their, know all of the nuances that make those people who they are. Meanwhile, African Americans were constantly looking to anyone other than an African American to guide us. Right? Anybody that is African American that has reached some level of academia, he's always been considered off it or astray or something wrong with him, something wrong with his aqidah, something wrong with his minhaj. But yet and still, we'll take our brains out of our head, put our brain on the table, and we'll blind follow a scholar or two or three or four, right? So from another country who knows absolutely nothing about your culture, know nothing about your language, know nothing about the nuances that make you who you are. Do you find that funny? Isn't that ironic? Every prophet and messenger was sent to the people from which he came, including Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, including the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pay attention to his word. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِلَى مَدْيَنَ أَخَاهُمْ شُعَيْبًا. And to Median, we sent them their brother. Right? We sent them their brother. قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ. And he said, his first words were, "Oh my people." Right? And the moment you say that you tailor your addresses, not necessarily to African Americans, but that is the people that you spend the majority of your time with. Right? The majority of your time is spent with African American people who you look like them, you speak their language, you come from their culture, you understand their nuances better than anybody. The moment you say that, you're somehow a nationalist. Right? You're a nationalist. Meanwhile, people from other cultures can enjoy their culture, and you would never call them a nationalist. The moment we say we're concentrating on, this particular group of people because I'm more comfortable talking to my people, you're somehow a nationalist, a black nationalist. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Right. Got you. I don't think that we read the Quran at all, man. I don't think that we read the Quran at all, which is why we're probably always regurgitating some scholar's statement. We don't read the Quran at all. Listen to your favorite imam, listen to your favorite scholar, whoever he is, and listen to how many ayahs he or she or he quotes within his lecture. Listen. You don't have to take my word for it. Wallah al-Azim, believe me when I tell you. Listen to your favorite imam, because we have some diehard, fans, right? Diehard fans of this imam, this student of knowledge, this scholar, this sheikh. Listen to his 45-minute, hour, 15-minute lecture and tell me how many ayahs he quotes. Tell me how many Quranic references he makes. You have brothers who will give an entire lecture and not quote one ayah from the Quran. I kid you not. Not one ayah from the Quran. Not one reference from the Quran. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. The sheikh is saying here, and what the sheikh is saying here, and what the scholars say over here, and the scholars, of Islam, they say blah, blah, blah. They give you the whole rundown, right? Not one ayah from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala quoted. I'm sorry. Right? And then we talk about somebody's aqidah and somebody's minhaj or somebody being astray. I can't think of somebody who is more astray than a person who can speak about Islam for an hour and 15 minutes and not quote one ayah from the Quran. I can't think of someone who is more astray. I can't think of someone who is more astray that you will give a lecture about Islam for an hour and 45 minutes and not mention one ayah from the Quran. Yeah, absolutely. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِلَى مَدْيَنَ أَخَاهُمْ شُعَيْبًا, and to Madian we sent them their brother Shuaib. قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ, and he said, "O my people, O my people." His statement, "O my people," meaning I am from you. O my people. Right? قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَهٍ غَيْرُهُ. O my people, right? The Thamud, yes. O my people, worship Allah alone. You have no other God other than Him. This was his message. The bulk of his message, concentrating on Tawheed, theology, belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Madian is located in a region in Saudi Arabia that we know today as Tabuk. The area of Tabuk today which is not too far from Mecca, the area of Tabuk today is what was known as the people of Shuaib's town, the town of Madian. They were being dishonest in their business transactions. So one of the things that you'll notice about the prophets and messengers is that they usually address their people in terms of their theology, their belief in God, and their approach to God, whether it is idolatry, whether it is, just complete disbelief, atheism in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? They would approach their people addressing them initially about their belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then they would branch off, and portion of their da'wah would be towards the social ills of that society. Unlike today, when it's all about Tawheed, 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 the books of Usul al-Thalatha, the Qawaid al-Arba, and all of these different aspects of concentrating on one particular area of the religion and say nothing about the social ills and conditions of the society in which we live. I mean, does that even make sense to anybody who has the least amount of intellect? Would it make sense to approach a people who are drowning in social ills, right? Everything from alcoholism to homosexuality to cheating, lying, stealing, dishonesty, right? Infidelity. Would it be wise? Is it wise for anyone with the least amount of intellect to approach a people who are drowning in social ills, social diseases, and say absolutely nothing about that, right? And concentrate totally on Allah being above His throne. Okay, got it. Allah is above His throne. How does that affect my life personally? You understand? How does me knowing Allah being above His throne, how does that help me get off drugs? How does that help me be a better spouse to my wife, or a better spouse to my husband? How does that help me, right, to become a better citizen in the environment in which I live, right? All right, knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has two hands, knowing the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm not saying that does not contribute to you becoming a better Muslim. It does. But I'm talking about how does that translate, right? How does that translate into you becoming a better human being, and how you interact with the larger society around you? How? And I mean, the thing about it is that it can, if the teachers that were teaching Tawheed knew how to infuse theology and belief in God into the other social realms of our lives, but they don't know how to do that. So they stay year after year after year teaching the same 3 or 4 books from the same 3 or 4 scholars, brainwashing you, because the more and more you buy into the rhetoric, the more and more, the less you use of your critical thinking, right? The more and more you buy into the rhetoric, the less and less you use of your critical thinking. And there's nothing more harmful to a society than a bunch of blind followers who don't know how to critically analyze information that is given to them. Nothing more dangerous to any society than a bunch of blind followers who don't know how to use. And I mean, here we are today. They'll jump on here and call me a stray. They'll jump on anybody's Periscope and talk about this one and talk about that. We see it's a clear manifestation of your lack of ability to use your critical thinking. But they were being dishonest in their business transactions. Shuaib didn't ignore that, right? Shuaib didn't ignore the social challenges of the society. The first thing he said was, Ya qawmi i'budullaha ma lakum min ilahin ghayruh. Oh, my people, worship Allah alone. You have no other God other than Him, right? Then on top of that, he doubled back and he addressed them about their social ills. He said, لا تنقصوا المكيال والميزان إني أراكم بخير وإني أخاف عليكم عذاب يوم محيط. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that Shuaib, he further said, وَلَا تَنْقُصُ الْمِكْيَالِ, and do not set up the scales when you're weighing food, you're weighing, powder like flour and dates and barley and wheats. When you are weighing with measure, then weigh with truth. Don't set up the scales, right? So it's heavy on your end and light on the other end, so the person has to pay you more than actually what the food is worth. This is what they were doing, being dishonest in their business transaction, taking the money of people, right? تَأْخُذُونَ النَّاسِ بِالْبَاطِلِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us and not to eat the wealth of one another in dishonesty, right? So don't say that the prophets and messengers only taught Tawheed. They didn't only teach Tawheed. That is a misnomer. And that is another one of the rhetorics that they use to get you blind following them. Oh, stick to Tawheed, stick to Tawheed. So here we have a prophet who addressed them about Tawheed and also addressed them about their social dilemma. Right? We have a clear example. And it's just as one example. We can go through every single prophet and messenger, and I can show you the same thing. Yesterday, we covered Prophet Lut. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Prophet Lut in the Quran, right? Prophet Lut was only mentioned in the Quran addressing them about the atrocity or the abomination of homosexuality. But do you think that Prophet Lut never addressed his people about Tawheed? Yes, that goes without saying. Every prophet and messenger that came to their people, the first thing they said to them was, Ya qawmi i'budullaha ma lakum min ilahin ghayruh. Oh, my people, worship your Lord. You have no God other than Him. But Allah didn't need to mention that about Prophet Lut because it's already understood. That is the rule of thumb of all of the prophets and messengers. There was no need, right, to mention Prophet Lut addressing his people about Tawheed because that goes without saying. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about Prophet Lut in the Quran, only him addressing the social ills of his people. That's another example. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is another example. Clear example. Now we have a bunch of people running around talking about they're on the minhaj of the Salaf, they're on the haqq, they're on this and they're on that, and they don't address any of the social ills of the society. Yet you're running around with this small little treatise, right? This small little book that it would take the smallest student of knowledge 2 days to memorize these mutun that you spend in so many years teaching. You gotta be kidding me, man. You spending year after year, you walking around with usul al-thalatha and qawaid al-arba. Wallah al-azim, we memorize those in days. In Islamic University, we memorize those in days. Yet they got you, brainwashed into thinking that these are some of the major books of Aqidah. You got to be kidding me, man. These little small treatises, these little small books. Some of these books, let's look at Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala, and his book on Aqidah, which he wrote on a journey from Syria to Mecca, from Mecca to Syria. He wrote this book on Aqidah. Aqidah Wasatiyah. He wrote it on a journey. Meanwhile, we walking around with this book in our hands like this is like the greatest milestone of Tawheed in the treasure of knowledge that have been left back by the scholars who have passed. You've got to be kidding me, man. You walking around with, I'm laughing at you. You're a joke. Literally, you're a joke. I'm laughing at you because you're walking around with Qawaid al-Arba, the 4 fundamental principles, Usul al-Thalatha, which any student of knowledge, any small student of knowledge could memorize that metin in a day or 2. We memorized the whole metin in a day or two. We're talking about real students of knowledge who memorize 2 or 3 pages a day of the Quran. Memorizing a small metin like Usul al-Thalatha and Qawaid al-Arba is nothing. Yet here you are a year, 6 months into teaching. Like, come on, man. You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me, man. Meanwhile, got everybody thinking that these are the largest books, the biggest books in Aqidah. Meanwhile, you haven't even scratched the tip of the iceberg as it relates to Aqidah. You haven't even scratched the tip of the iceberg as it relates to Mutun in Aqidah. Anyway, at any rate, you guys don't hear me anyway, man. I'm astray. I'm talking out of the side of my neck. What do I know, man? What do I know? Right. Anyway, so Shuaib alayhi salam, he addressed the belief system of the people, and he also addressed their social ills as well. He said, Ya qawmi i'budullaha ma lakum min ilahin ghayru. O my people, worship Allah alone. You have no God other than Him. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Him addressing them about their social ills. وَلَا تَنْقُسُوا الْمِكْيَالَ وَالْمِيزَانِ إِنِّي أَرَاكُمْ بِخَيْرٍ. I see you to be upon good. Do not fix the scale so that it weighs heavy on your end, light on the other end, so people got to pay more for what they're actually getting. Don't cheat people out of their money. Indeed, I fear for you a day of standing where it's going to be a horrible day. And if you notice here, he addressed both faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and their social issues. All right. While today you have many people who concentrate only on the religious matters, which only becomes empty, abstract, theological rhetoric, because the social component is where we begin to practice these things. How you teach Aqidah and don't teach, the other social components of life? How in the world do we implement Aqidah except that we have to learn the social ills, the social dilemma of the social nuances of our society? That is where we begin to implement our Aqidah. This is why it's called Aqidah and Minhaj. Minhaj is how you carry out your Aqidah. It's the Maidan, it's the platform upon which you carry out your Aqidah. Right? This is why the Prophet ﷺ, right? This is why the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man tazawwaja faqad istakmala nisf ad-din, falyattaqillah fi nisf al-akhar." That whoever gets married, right? Whoever gets married, then you have completed half of your religion. Why? Because half of all of the matters in your religion, like being patient, being tolerant, being forgiving, and all of those aspects of those things manifest when we get married. Right? This is where we begin to implement that. So yeah, while you should have a foundation of Aqidah and correct belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but if you don't address the social ills through which you're going to implement your Aqidah, then how else are you going? It just becomes empty, abstract, theological rhetoric. It just becomes rhetoric. Just abstract theology. You don't have anywhere to practice it and implement it. You're just walking around carrying books, regurgitating what you heard in a lecture or you heard from a sheikh, and you don't have any grounds upon which to implement it, to carry it. At any rate, Shuaib, he tried to appeal to his people through his message of equality. He wanted them to know that I am not commanding you not to do something and then turn around and do it myself. He said, "Ma uridu an ukhalifakum ila ma anhaakum anhu. In uridu illa islah ma istata'tu." He said, I do not wish to go against the very things that I'm telling you not to do. I only wish for rectification of our society as much as I have the ability. Right? Meaning, I will do the same things that I'm commanding you to do. That's what makes a leader effective. You can't tell people to do one thing and then turn around and do the opposite, right? He said, "Ma uridu an ukhalifakum ila ma anhaakum anhu." I don't seek to oppose the same things that I am imposing on you, right? He said, "Ma uridu illa islah ma istata'tu," but I only want rectification of our society. I only want civility. I want us to live a civil life as much as I have the ability. And then he gets to the point that is the bulk of our lecture today. He said, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَإِلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ. All right. He said, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. And my success is only with Allah. Here again, he's not asking Allah for anything. He's praising Allah and showing Allah his weakness and his reliance on him. Right? This is another form of dua. It doesn't always have to be you asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something. Sometimes it's just about the conversation that you're having with him. It doesn't always have to be that you are asking Allah for something. Sometimes it's just the conversation, just to be able to open up to God, open up and have a conversation with God, right? That sometimes is enough. You don't need anything else. I'm not asking necessarily for anything. I just want to have a conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I just want to be heard by my Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't necessarily want anything, right? So Shuaib, he said, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. And my success is only by the permission of Allah. عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ. And upon him is who I put my trust. وَإِلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ. And to him I turn. Right? You can hear the frustration of Shuaib in his calling out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. And my success is by none other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, I cannot have no success, any success in my life, except that God is at the forefront of it. He's at the helm of it. I can have no success in my life, whether spiritual, whether secular, it doesn't matter. I cannot have any success in my life except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is behind it. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. And my success is only by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When someone comes to you and they say, oh, congratulations, you did that, say this. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. And my success was by none other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't ever take credit for anything that you've done. Give all the credit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you give the credit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Allah says, لَإِن شِكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. That if you are grateful to me, I will give you more. If you give it all to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can have anything you want in this life. So as long as you give Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what he requires from us, what he requests from us, and that is to give it back to him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't take anything for yourself. Someone says, oh, you benefited me with this, or you did that for me, and thank you so much. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. And my success is by none other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I had help. I didn't do it all myself. I didn't do it all myself. I had help. I had help from the one in whose hands is the dominion of everything. وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. I had help from the one who has power over all things. That's who helped me. I didn't do it all myself. Right? Not like Fir'aun said, when Fir'aun, he said that, إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُهُ عَلَى الْعِلْمٍ مِنْ عِنْدِي. That I have been given all of this because of knowledge that I have. The arrogance of Fir'aun. Right? No, we give it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't take credit for anything. We don't take credit. Now, you see how we just infused Aqidah with social nuances? You see how we just infused that? Right? Our Aqidah is that to believe that all of our success is from Allah. All of our success is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a belief. Because to believe other than that would mean that you believe that somehow you have, some say-so in the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is part of our belief. To believe that every success, every good that we have done that has landed in our laps, in our hands, is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right, now, how do we infuse that in our social interactions with the world around us? When people praise us, right, then we say, my success is only by Allah. You see how that works? You see how Aqidah and living your life, right, living your best Muslim life, right, you see how they are intertwined? And you shouldn't separate one from the other. You shouldn't separate Aqidah and Minhaj and all of that other stuff and then make social issues as if it's a non-factor, as if it doesn't matter. Making, issues like domestic violence like it's not that important. That if the brother knew Tawheed, if he understood Aqidah, then he wouldn't be beating his wife. That there may be some truth to that. But it's not all just about Aqidah. Some of us grew up in homes where we saw, beatings. We saw women getting beat in our homes, and it became a social norm. It became a social norm. So just, believing that Allah is above his throne and some of the other, intricate matters of Aqidah doesn't mean that the social ills are going to stop altogether. We have a dual diagnosis, man. We got spiritual issues. We got social issues. We got personal, psychological issues, man. We have multiple dilemmas, man. And just to approach it from one angle, neglecting the other or downplaying the other, right? We downplay domestic violence. Right? We downplay, the increase of divorce in our communities. We downplay, an influx of brothers not wanting to work and going after women who have money. We downplay women who abuse the system and take advantage of men after the divorce and go to the system and taking, tons of money from their ex-husbands, to satisfy their own personal needs and not even using the money for their children. Facts, man. Facts on top of facts. So we have a ton of dilemmas, man. We can't just keep, passing over these things, sweeping it under the prayer rug. Yeah, no, we can't do that, right? If we deal with Aqidah, then we should teach people how to infuse their Aqidah into their social life. That is the ultimate teaching. That is the ultimate level of empowerment. But to sit back and go through a book, flip through the pages of a book, somebody sitting in front of you regurgitating to you what a sheikh is saying in his book, right? And then you walk away, close the book and walk away with no idea, right? Or no idea on how to infuse all of this information into my personal life, right? I think it's a waste of time. Me personally. I think it's a waste of time. For me to sit in front of you for 45 minutes with a book open, you regurgitating to me, explaining to me what the sheikh is saying, and then for me to close my book and walk away and go home, and you not teach me how to infuse all of that information into my personal life to make it practical, to make it real, I just wasted my time. You just wasted my time. You just wasted my time. It's a waste of time. And so now they'll say, Shadeed Muhammad says studying Aqidah is a waste of time. That's not what I said. That's not what I said. All right? Don't twist my words. I didn't say studying Aqidah is a waste of time because that's how they'll spin it, right? Tomorrow or tonight, the lecture after Taraweeh, right? In between the 4 rak'ahs, they'll do a lecture on Shadeed Muhammad, right? Shadeed says this brother is astray. He's a deviant. He's astray. He said studying Aqidah is a waste of time. You hear this? Do you hear this, brothers and sisters? And some of you brainwashed will just accept that and go back and tell your friend who listens to Shadeed Muhammad, you shouldn't listen to him because he says that studying Aqidah is a waste of time. And it's all lies. All of it. Lies. All of it lies. It's not what I said. I said sitting in front of you with a book and you telling me what a sheikh said in this book and then me walk away without you teaching me how to infuse that information into my life practically is a waste of time. And that I stand by. That is a waste of time. You understand? That is a waste of time. So when they come and they say, he says that, you're listening to a brother who says studying Aqidah is a waste of time, it's a lie. All lies. All lies. So why don't you just take a clip of me clarifying this now, and then just keep that clip on hold, because soon as they put out a clip, I don't even know if they play them games anymore, but anyway, if they do. I think after reclaiming our communities, the 3-hour-long lecture that I gave, I think after that, it's been pretty silent since then. Alhamdulillah. For me, anyway. I haven't really heard anything. I've heard a bunch of crickets. After reclaiming our communities, I've heard a bunch of crickets. I haven't heard anything. And I don't want any drama. I don't want drama. I try to live a drama-free life. But me living a drama-free life doesn't stop me from speaking facts. I have to speak my truth, man. I have to speak my truth. If they do, it doesn't reach me. Alhamdulillah, I don't hear anything. I don't feed into them. I don't hear anything, and I don't want to hear anything. Please don't come to me telling me somebody said something, because I give zero. I care zero about that. Honestly, I don't. I have to speak my truth. You know what I mean? And that's the only thing that I can stand on. All right, so again, his statement, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ, that my success is only with Allah. عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ, I put my trust in Him. وَإِلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ, وَإِلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ, and to Him I turn to for guidance. For Him I turn to Him I turn to for guidance. So this is a very powerful statement by Prophet Shuaib. You can hear the sincerity in his voice. You can hear the frustration in his voice. Subhanallah, you can hear it. He said, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ, that my success is only with Allah. عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ, I put my trust upon Him or in Him. وَإِلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ, and I turn to Him in obedience. Meaning, if you all still decide to be disobedient, I'm going to turn to Him in obedience. That means that Prophet Shuaib was not a follower. If his people decided to disobey Allah, then ilayhi unib, I turn to Allah in obedience. I put my trust in Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning I leave all of my affairs in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Very powerful, powerful dua of Prophet Shuaib alayhi salam. And with that, inshallah ta'ala, we'll stop here. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. And before you guys conclude, let me just, express that, it's not my intention. That wasn't even written in any of my notes. It was just kind of a sidebar because I saw that, I see that, with this next generation of students and knowledge, you or the generation that has passed, you have this heavy concentration on Aqidah, which I believe is good. It's a good thing to concentrate on Aqidah and to help people correct their understanding of God. That's very important. But just as important is to teach people how to infuse those teachings into their personal lives. It becomes real. It becomes practical. Islam is a way of life, not a religion. We're not just learning some tidbits and pieces of information on Friday after the lecture or Saturday after a lecture. That's making Islam a religion. Islam is not a religion. Islam is a way of life, meaning all of the information that we are learning about Islam, we also have to learn how to practically implement that in our lives. And I think that a large part of our teachings are missing that. The practical aspect. How does that look in real time? Okay? How does that look in real time? Anytime I'm preparing a lecture, I always ask myself, if I was sitting in the crowd listening to this, what would I need from the speaker in order to walk away feeling whole? I want to walk away feeling whole. I don't just want to walk away. I can go to any place and get information. I'm not looking for information. I'm looking for ilm, nafi'. I'm looking for beneficial knowledge. You understand? Beneficial knowledge is information that is practical and that you practice. That's what I'm looking for. Beneficial knowledge. I'm not looking for ma'lumat. I'm not looking for information. I can get information from anywhere. I can get information from picking up a book and reading it myself. When I sit in front of a scholar, I sit in front of a person who professes to be a person of knowledge. I'm looking for you to teach me information and then how to apply that information to my life. If I'm just looking for information, the same book that you sitting in front of me reading, I can read that myself. Why do I need to go and sit in front of a scholar, in front of a student of knowledge for you to, to regurgitate some words out of a book to me? I can pick up the same book that you reading and read it myself. Why do I need to sit in front of you and listen to you read a book in front of me? I'm not a kid. I'm not a child. Right? I'm not incompetent. I can read. I don't need to go to a lecture, break my neck to get to a lecture, going to buy the book, to sit in front of somebody with a book, and he's reading everything that is in front of you, right? I can do that myself. I don't need to break my neck to get to the masjid to have you read a book to me, right? I need you to tell me how the information in this book can be applied to my personal life. That's what I need you to do. That's what a scholar's job, that is what a student of knowledge job is. هذا وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Time.